Hello. Happy Wednesday, or if you're like Malcolm, happy Thursday. Um, Thanks again for joining. My name is Andrew. I'm a mindfulness meditation coach. I'm certified through the through Unified Mindfulness. And some folks might know me as the moderator from the Do Nothing Project. And so this has become, I actually don't know how long we've been doing this. I think maybe we're getting close to 3 months. Very, very close to 3 months, dangerously close to 3 months. So thanks for the folks that are joining regularly. Thank you to those folks that are watching the recording. I definitely noticed the bumps in the views, and so hello to you. Hello to Colette, great to have you live, and to Saban, who's hailing from Arizona, the great Southwest of the United States, as well. And as Ruth would offer, don't forget to like, and most of you are probably already subscribed. If you aren't subscribed, you can do that by clicking the subscribe button, but you can also get email notifications and reminders if you send an email to andrew.leonards@gmail.com. Hello, Gabrielle. Gabrielle is a long time viewer from back when I did this I did afternoons. Gosh, when was that now? Late 2020, early 2021, I think. And then I stopped after I got my new job. So yeah, thank you to Malcolm, Saban, Colette, to Gabrielle. Oh, hello, Suzanne, and oh yes, so Ruth Scrabs, one of our folks from the Toronto area, hailing from the Six. So I actually don't have it with me, but I had found. So there's this story that Dan Harris will often tell, and he got it from Dr. Mark Epstein, where Mark Epstein would go to retreats and then he would take notes, and then he usually didn't look at his retreat notes for a long time, and then he realized that after he started looking at his retreat notes, he was sort of marking the same things over time, and I thought that, and so Mark Epstein has been on 10% Happier a number of times. I've listened to, he reads a bunch of his audiobooks, not all of his audiobooks, but a bunch of Mark Epstein's audiobooks. He is the one reading them, so it's author read. And I always like that idea that you can go to a retreat and you're being reminded, like you're kind of being reminded of the thing that is like salient to you, that you're like, oh yeah, that's this thing. And the idea that you're gonna have new things in your notes is almost like this illusion of needing to improve. So we don't need to improve, we just need to be reminded. So like that's like we have kind of an instinct to like the thing that we think is likely going to help, and we just need to be reminded. So I was playing around with that idea. I found my notes from Jeff's Omega retreat last year. I got to attend last year, and I was looking at some of the different notes that I had taken, and that's where that story from Mark Epstein had come to mind. So one of the things I was thinking about playing with so we're going to have a 25-minute sit together, getting ahead of myself, and we'll just play around a little bit with what does it look like to sit down and kind of figure out what might be helpful, or remind ourselves what could be helpful in a given sit. So last week, if I'm remembering correctly, we did a variation on Jeff's prompt around noticing what's already here. And so we'll do light guidance, give you time to explore a bit. That'll be about 20 minutes of our 25-minute sit. And then the last 5 minutes, we'll drop that, put it aside, and allow ourselves kind of let our mind kind of romp around however it wants. So I often will use the prompt around sort of, we've pedaled that whole time, although that 20 minutes, we've been putting up this notion of coming back to our technique, and then that last 5 minutes is a chance for us to kind of coast. We don't have to pedal anymore. We just kind of ride out to the end. So that's where we're headed. Hello to Lynn as well. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for ducking in before you have to duck out. So if Malcolm doesn't know, Lynn is also in Australia. So you may, although Malcolm, you're on Tasmania, so you're Lynn is on the mainland. So let's see. I think that's everything. Saban, the romper room. A good. I guess I think of that as 60s. Maybe it's. I always think of that as a kind of a 60s reference. But all right. So I've got 25 minutes on the clock. I've got a bell. I'm going to ring that bell, and we'll go ahead and start our sit together. Thank you again for joining live, and for those watching the recording. So as we begin, just looking to see if we can arrange the body in a way that allows us to feel supported, both by the chair or the ground that we're on, and then the posture also being, hopefully, if possible, symmetric. Seems to kind of help. And then you're always welcome to meditate in any of the 4 postures. So you could be sitting, you could be standing, you could be lying down, and you could be walking. So maybe you're walking, or you're listening to this while you walk. But I'm going to assume that you're in a seated posture. So I'm just letting you know that those options are available, and I'll guide around the seated posture. Checking in to see if there's any tension in the body. And just really noticing the tension, but then sort of acceptance of, oh, there you are. So if you've been operating in the North American time zones, you're ending your day. You may find that you've got sort of sore shoulders, or your posture just doesn't feel quite right. So just seeing if bringing attention to the tension helps. And if it doesn't, it's our first opportunity to bring a no big deal attitude. And as we sit, we begin to settle into the posture, and a few deliberate breaths. So breathing in through the nose allows us to slow down the inhale. That allows us to breathe low into the belly. And then if we can, breathing out in a way that really extends and accentuates the exhale. And so for some, depending on how your day has been, 2 or 3 deliberate breaths may be enough to kind of shift your state into like more of a being mode instead of a doing. So I'll offer guidance, but you can always kind of mark this spot right here, just this sort of sitting and knowing that you're sitting. So if you lose track with the guidance, you can always kind of come back to this. This is your waypoint. So as we sit, just beginning to get an idea of what's it like right now in the body, or maybe even what's the attitude of the mind. If we still feel a bit racy, like we're sort of speedy, can still take a few more deliberate breaths if that helps. Or if we're feeling a bit spaced out, we can begin to think about what would be a home base for us to work with, to add some stability. So one home base is what we mentioned at the top, the waypoint of just the sense of being a body sitting here. A very simple home base. And there's, of course, the breath. And then there's sounds around us. Kind of our three options for home bases. So if we've picked a home base, we can work with the home base slightly differently. We can kind of tune that. So the entry point would just be focusing on the home base, whatever you've selected, knowing that your attention can be pulled away. And then the big emphasis is, can we bring our attention back to the home base without doing it in a punitive way? Or can we do it without any judgment? So that's really the light working with the home base. And then we can sharpen a bit more with just seeing if we can pour more attention into the home base. Being really clear about the attention being on the home base, or seeing how close to it we can get, something Jeff says. How close to that sound can you be? Or what's the edge of the sensation of the breath feel like? And then for whatever home base we've chosen, we can use mental labels. And they're a way for us to ensure the attention stays there a little bit longer. So if we're working with the breath, we could notice the inhale and then optionally label it in. Notice the exhale, optionally label it out. If you're using the sense of the body sitting here, you could use feel as your label. And for sounds, I lean towards hear, Hear. So explore that a little bit. And so we can dial in on how we work with the home base. So if the use of the optional label doesn't feel like it's helping, you can always drop the labels and continue the noticing. Just seeing how much precision you have, whether it's helping or not helping. And then we can turn the volume kind of, so to speak, up on labeling. So if you think the labeling is helping, you can increase the frequency of noting and labeling. So that might be repeating in as you're noticing the inhale, and repeating out as you're noticing the noting and labeling the exhale. And then the other opportunity is if you're in a place where you can use spoken labels. So if we're in a monastery, we're going to disturb people. So we wouldn't do that normally, but in this remote, distance, virtual meditation world we're in, you can experiment with that. Spoken labels is a trick that people will use when they're very sleepy but yet want to meditate. I, of course, would encourage you to nap if you're that sleepy, but so those are ways to bring the sort of labeling up in a way to help you maintain contact. And then, of course, if you need to dial back, really just finding that balance point, you can dial back. So continue to explore. So if you feel like you've gotten into a really good groove with your home base, then feel free to continue with that. You can just allow whatever I'm going to say right now to be in the background. This is the portion of our sit together where we shift and allow ourselves to let go of the technique and just really allow the mind to go wherever it wants to go. Sort of like when you finally get to the dog park with your dog and you get through the 2 gates and you take the leash off. So wherever the mind wants to go, you can let it go. And then notice if you want to try to micromanage things, and then seeing if you can let that go again. And really just allow the mind to move wherever it wants to move. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have questions or reports or anything, you can always put those over in chat. I remembered halfway through the sit that so Jeff mentioned, oh hey Groves, hello. You're very welcome, Gabrielle. Thanks for checking in, Jeff. I always mention your name, Jeff. Thank you to Jeff Groves, because when I put my phone in airplane mode, I always think of you. So Jeff mentioned on the Do Nothing project this last week that sometimes before we're trading messages up to like the time that the Do Nothing project starts, and sometimes he's gonna do it or I'm gonna do it, and we're kind of depending on logistics for him and things like that. And so my theme was going to be something that is out of this book by Linda, and then just to be respectful of copyright, I'm mentioning this to you as part of review purposes only, because I noticed in the book it says that you cannot reproduce anything from this book without express written consent, and so this is just for review purposes only. But there is a mention in here, so a lot of what she does, it feels like Zen, I guess, is the nicest way for me to put that. Oh, you're very welcome, Malcolm, and thank you for joining live. There's a little line in here of, to following a wandering mind means to get lost so you can stand being lost. And actually in here it's I read it like it was a statement, but actually it's a question. So to follow a wandering mind means having to get lost. Can you stand being lost? And so there's another line in here about that is cool too, about being a being in motion, I think is the line. To go on being a being in motion. But that notion of being able to stand being lost, I really love that as a quote for, because a lot of times you'll tell people like, what's your primary practice? And in Zen, this shikantaza is just sitting. That's the do nothing side of the thing. But the notion that so people will be like, well, so let me get this straight. You just sit there and you don't do anything? Like, how does that help? Like, how are you going to get enlightened from that? And it's a fair question. But there's something in the doing of that you're like, it always had resonated with me. So I like this notion of that just sitting or doing nothing has this motion of being okay with the fact that you're lost, that you can be lost. There's a conference talk I heard years and years ago in 2007 by an author named Peter Turchi, where he talked about it takes effort to get lost, and then there's virtue in being lost. So, so I'll show. So it's What It Is the name of the book, and it's Linda Berry. She's an artist in underground comics, but she also is a teacher, and she talks a lot about the unthinkable and the unthinkable mind and different things. So I'll put the title in, What It Is, and Linda Berry. And so that was going to be my like the theme or the seed for my sit on Sunday. And then I started today with my little preamble about the notes and things, because I had run on to my own little notebooks. So hopefully that finding what's there, or seeing if what you can do to tune your sit a little bit to what's there. I always want to highlight, because I know this wasn't the case for when I first started sitting. If you're super tired, the spoken labels works and probably sleep. So I'd always been given instruction about how to continue to meditate even under sort of duress, like like you're tired and you don't feel well, or you have a cold, or things like that. And so eyes open and spoken labels will totally help you to meditate if you're trying to do that. But at the same time, maybe there's something to do off the cushion that'll help too. So anyway, I've been um, I've been going back and forth and like working my way through a lot of Linda Berry stuff of late. I tend to doodle and draw and stuff, but my drawings from an outside world perspective would not be considered like super great or anything like that. But I find it enjoyable, and so I've been playing around with how do I do that without worrying about the fact that they're kind of bad or they're not like like outwardly somebody might not say like don't something to the effect of don't quit your day job, which I'm not planning on doing necessarily. But anyway, thought I would share that. So um, the um, the being a being in motion, that quote was the second one that I dropped in there. I that jumped out to me because what we've been talking about often, or what I've been talking about, is I'm doing these sits at the end of my workday, and I'm moving from a doing kind of motion, or this like high activity of like being a human doing. And the sit for me is a really nice like sort of demarcation in my day to switch over to like the um, the Mr. Rogers equivalent of putting on my cardigan and like sitting down and just being a being. And so that being a being in motion, I like the repetitiveness of that. So Jeff will be, I believe, your guide for Sunday. So that's on task. My girlfriend and I will be up on Mount Lemon. So hopefully I'll be able to moderate remotely. The internet gods will help with that, hopefully. And we'll be back next week for another Wednesday sit. If you haven't had a chance to sit with the Consciousness Explorers Club, cecmeditate.com is where you can find them, and the newsletter just came out. You can always find the newsletters, the back newsletters, on their website as well. But there's a new theme for the month, and it is paradox. So if you like koans and Zen stuff and the paradox of non-duality and being in general, that might be a theme that you're interested in for the month. So yeah, thank you so much for spending time and being here live, and then also to the folks that are seeing this across space and time. It's really encouraging. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of the week, or have a great Friday if you are in Australia, or actually have a great Thursday and Friday.